I have the coziest blanket in the world. Oh, what's that? Did I wake you up? Did I wake you up? So here we are in the car. I don't want to talk about what I'm listening to today, Still, the Master and His Emissary. I want to talk about reading and listening to books in general, because it's been something that has dramatically changed my life. And I can't even imagine not listening to a book every day. It just wouldn't seem like a day without some kind of information coming in that I'm kind of soaking in and processing and incorporating into how I frame the world, how I frame myself, how I frame my beliefs. So one of the reasons that I choose audiobooks over the written word is that it's very difficult for me to pay attention to a page of text. My mind wanders, I drift. In college, I would get hopelessly behind within the first week of every class. This happened every semester. I just couldn't do the reading, and I would fall further and further behind, and I'd watch my classmates moving up in the conversations that we were having, and I had no idea what was going on, and it was a contributing factor to my depression. This witnessing or observation of myself as someone that couldn't read, and therefore as someone that was likely to be a failure in life because I couldn't do what was required. And there was a jealousy, I guess you'd say, of other people that could read. So anyway, flash forward decades, and I now listen to content, books, lectures, podcasts, a couple hours every day. Sometimes up to 8 hours a day, depending on what I'm working on. And here's a difference that I think is really important to address. Text is processed by the left hemisphere. Text is not of the world. Even though you can hold a book in your hand, it's not something that's naturally occurring. It's an abstraction. It's about symbols, and it's the left hemisphere that deals with symbols. Deals with cutting things up and putting them into categories that remain consistent, that don't change. Whereas the right hemisphere is about embodiment, it's about the world, it's about feeling, it's about sensing. And therefore, auditory information gets processed differently, and it gets processed in the world. The right hemisphere knows how to link or integrate auditory information into the world, because as far as it's concerned, those voices are happening in your environment. They're happening here. Whereas text on a page is not here. There's no noise. There's no images. My brain is making those images. My brain is making those voices as it interprets text. So I can listen to a book in an alert, vigilant state of attention, right hemisphere, and really absorb the information as I do things in my day, as I physically engage, because my right hemisphere processes that auditory information in a state of vigilance. So it makes it important. Whereas text on a page, my brain does not deem as important because my right hemisphere is dominant due to depression. I have a right shift. So everything that I do is going to be filtered primarily through my right. It's going to dominate the interpretation. And text on a page, not important. Don't even know what that is. Auditory information, ooh, what is that? What did they say? What was that? So I pay much more attention, I take it in, and I can engage. I can physically move my body through the world, and my brain then takes that information and integrates it into the places that I've been. So when I go back to a place, suddenly it feeds that information to me, like, oh, this is what was being said when you were standing next to this rock or this tree or this stream on this day. And it's like, wow. And all that information floods back to me without even trying to remember it, because my brain is mapping it into the environment. It doesn't happen with text. So I'm a huge fan of listening, but then again, I'm a right shifter. For people that are left shifted, that might be really difficult. So textual engagement for someone who has a left shift may be more appropriate. But for me and all the other people with right-shifted brains, listening while moving through the world is awesome. Okay, let me know what you think. I'm very curious if other people have had similar experiences. Okay, see you in a bit. The old gatehouse to the Everett mansion is for sale. I'm painting the wall in our pantry and I'm trying to match this old milk paint color. So I've got some green that I've kind of whipped up, and now I'm adding some orange to it to make it a little bit closer to what's on the wall. I think that's a pretty good match. There's a little bunny watching the sunset. You're like a groundhog with big ears. You're like a big-eared groundhog, aren't you? That's not a bunny, that's a bunny hunter. That's a bee cat. She's the sister that you haven't seen yet. Hey, bee. What you doing? What are you scouting for, huh? What are you scouting for? What is it, bee? What is it? Oh, stretchy, huh? Yeah. Yeah. What do you got? What do you got, bee? Beautiful colors tonight over the shuffleboard court. Yes, I have a shuffleboard court. Sunset at Casa Van Orden. It's nicer in person. I'm looking at the camera. Most things are nicer in person. Before I hop on the elliptical, I want to talk about an exchange I've been having today with someone that's trying to come to an understanding of why they don't take steps. And what I've been trying to get across is that understanding should not be the goal. Standing should be the goal. And I recently posted the video on the difference between understanding and interstanding, standing underneath, collecting data, versus standing among, standing in the midst of. And the left hemisphere of our brain desires to understand. And because we live in a culture that promotes that way of being and that way of thinking, we have to solve our problems before we can take a step. Then we'll be safe. Then we'll know what to do. Then we'll succeed, guaranteed, because I can see it all mapped out. It's clear as day. So the left hemisphere focuses on what? What is it? What do we have to do? What are we going to encounter, etc.? It wants to break everything down into a what, put it in a category, and then take those categories, take those pieces and assemble them on a map, make a plan, and say, okay, I understand how to do this now. But you don't understand how to do it. Because how is the domain or the expertise of the right hemisphere of the brain. So if your goal is to seek understanding, you're going to get a lot of whats. And because those whats are not hows, you're going to keep accumulating whats, because you're not going to know what to do with all those whats, because that requires a how. So how do you find the how? By standing, not by understanding. Understanding is watching a YouTube video on how to play a saxophone. Standing is grabbing the saxophone, feeling it in your hand, blowing into the mouthpiece, and experiencing what happens when you interact with this, because, oh wow, I didn't expect that my lips would feel like that my lungs would feel like that, or that my diaphragm would get so tired, or that my fingers would be so uncoordinated. It looks so easy when I watch somebody else do it. So you saw what needs to be done, but you don't know how it feels, and you don't know how to go from that feeling to a different feeling, because all you got was understanding. You got what. And the only way to get to how is to let go of the under in understanding, so that you're just left with standing. Like, how do I do this? I don't know. Let's stand here and find out. Let's stand among. Let's stand in the midst of this. Let's take a step and find out. Understanding is about trying to find in. It's about running simulations. Ooh, look at that. I did both sides of the brain, but it's really just the left. We run simulations over and over and over again. We imagine what is going to happen, what we might encounter, what we might do about it. But nowhere in those simulations are we getting a full embodied sense of what that experience will be like and how we'll deal with it. You got to stand. And standing requires faith. Standing requires trust that your body knows what to do. And it does. But you have to let go of trying to figure it in, understanding, and allow yourself to figure it out in the world, in the midst, among. Okay, that was exhausting. Now I need to go relax on the elliptical machine.